Ken Block, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get into the fact that you're running for governor, let's just get your version of a bio, because there's so many different ways that people describe you.
I've done some things over time. So in my day job, I own a software engineering business. We provide engineering services to very large companies for computer systems that handle tons of transactions and have to work really fast. That's our specialty. And what's become a hobby over the years and a passion has been being involved in what's going on in Rhode Island. And that involvement sometimes has involved running for office. Sometimes it's involved being an advocate. I've run for office twice before. I created a centrist political party in 2009. I had to sue the state and federal court because their laws to do that were unconstitutional, and we got them tossed out. That was my first taste. I got 6.5% of the vote, and I needed 5% to keep the party going. And that was a pretty substantial effort for somebody who was not known at all, to the people of Rhode Island. In 2014, I realized I was good at running, and I really had ideas that a lot of other candidates didn't. And I barely lost my primary for a Republican candidate for governor by 3,000 votes. And on the advocacy side of things, I engaged with the 50-year effort to get rid of the master lever in Rhode Island. I was involved with it for about 8 years, and I really helped push that over the finish line. It was a huge win for good government. It was a huge push, and we brought hundreds of people to the State House to get it done. I've advocated for fiscal stability in our cities and towns. And sadly and unfortunately, we still don't have it. And we just learned that Cranston is in a crisis right now. I believe we have to do a lot of things to stabilize our cities and towns' finances and make sure that we're okay. I have been really focused in on a line item veto, which is another good government issue. I'm not the guy who shows up when he's running for something and then isn't there any other time. I believe that you should always be engaged and always doing things. And I never really thought I'd be in the situation that you'd be talking to each other with me as a candidate. And even a month ago, this was not on my radar at all.
A month ago, not at all.
Not at all. A month ago, nowhere close. My family was beyond not bought in.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this has been a crazy 3 weeks. I've been announced not quite 2 weeks tomorrow. And I had only made the decision to announce the week before that. And there's a whole story in there that's very personal. I won't get into it, but I went from basically hell no to what do you wait?
Wow.
And yeah, so that's the whole reason that I'm in at this point. Plus the fact that the other candidates have no traction, zero. And it's shocking that that's the case here, because we have Helena Folks and Dan McKee, the incumbent governor, have been running against each other for 5 years. They've spent, I don't know, $5, $6, $7, $8 million collectively so far. And within their own primary, neither of them polls over 25%. The voters don't like whatever their message is, or I don't know what the malfunction is. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is we need to elect somebody who's going to address the problems. And they really haven't talked about how they're going to address any of the problems. And all you're going to hear from me, probably to an extent that will make your ears bleed, is how I'm going to address the problems.
Right. So a month ago, you're not considering running for governor at a serious level. Now you're in it. It goes from a hell no to a hell yes, essentially. Yeah. You're all in on this. Although when you first announced, I remember on a radio interview here on WPRO, I remember you saying you're going to take a little bit of time to assess the traction of, or the travel of, whether it's polling or fundraising.
So both. And I've already determined that the fundraising is there. In the first week, we raised about $40,000. And so that made me feel excellent, because I've run twice before, and $40,000 would be hard for me to do in a month, in a week. And so, yes, that's a big thing for me. And I know that there's pent up demand for giving to me. That's all bottled up because everybody's waiting on the poll that's in the field as we speak. I expect the poll to be complete by tonight. I don't expect the analysis to be done by tomorrow, which is when I would need to have it done early enough to get it out in the news cycle, which means I'll probably sit on it until Monday. But, you know, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a positive signal for me for sure. And enough for me to basically tell everybody decision is made. The markers are there. The path is there. The money is there. Let's go.
What I think is going to be most interesting about whatever polling comes in the near future in the wake of your announcement is how much the entity Ken Block fills the undecided component of what we've seen so far in the Democrat primary field. Obviously, you're not running in the Democrat primary. You will have an impact on it no matter what the candidates say. How they sculpt their message is going to be impacted by your message. There's no way around that. But I do agree, having covered both 4 years ago and now this race, it's not about issues that seem to resonate with the average everyday person. We hear so much about, well, Helena Folks is she's a drug dealer because of her time at CVS, and Dan McKee, in one way, shape, or form, is responsible for the Washington Bridge, people being stuck in traffic. And that's kind of where it starts and stops. And I would agree that Rhode Islanders, I mean, let's get right in. Let me ask you this question right here. We're heading into, if not already in, the most disruptive time technologically, perhaps economically, in maybe human history, certainly in a very long time, certainly in our lifetimes.
Well, for Rhode Islanders in particular, I would argue 30 years, because Bruce Sunland inherited an unbelievable financial crisis that almost shut down the state.
Mm-hmm.
So from a Rhode Islanders perspective, 30 years ago, that crisis with the credit unions was by far the biggest threat to our existence that we've seen.
I would agree that right now we face a lot of different pictures, fiscally, psychologically as well here in Rhode Island, that are so important. But even on the macro, with AI disruption, with the global landscape just as unpredictable as ever, and in no way, shape, or form trending in a direction that looks anything like the world order we kind of all grew up in. That's a big picture question, but it's happening right now. It's shaping decision-making on so many levels. Why is Ken Block the most qualified person to lead Rhode Island through this disruptive moment?
Yeah. So I'm going to start with two of the biggest fiascos that we've had, recent fiascos. We've had plenty of fiascos.
Sure.
But, in recent, within the last couple of months, we spent $100 million on a state payroll system that has screwed up the paychecks for state employees, continues to screw up getting accurate tax forms delivered for the tax filing, which is due today, by the way, right? April 15th. And that was $100 million. It's been a catastrophe of a project. It's negatively impacted virtually everybody who works for the state government. And it's a symptom, right? Because we've messed up similar and even bigger projects like UHIP/RI Bridges, which was $1 billion benefits delivery system that to this day is substantially broken and not well, doing its job not well. And we're going to throw that out and reprocure it, which is a mind-boggling expense to throw away. I do these sorts of large, really big projects for a living. I'm helping some of my biggest clients help them reorganize their business processes. And these are the things that Rhode Island really has to do. There are root causes, is what we say in my industry. There are reasons that we keep messing these projects up. We have to identify what they are, and we have to make sure we fix things and change the way we do business so it doesn't happen again. It's one of the biggest, most important things that we can do. And we've had 2 decades of governors who haven't done it. The bridge, similar type situation, but a little different. I have been almost certainly the loudest voice about the bridge problem and how we should never have landed here in the first place. There's plenty of evidence that we knew as a state, the DOT knew that this bridge was in trouble for about a decade, took no proactive steps to fix it. In fact, they took some political steps back to the Raimondo years that actually probably sealed its fate. And we don't have any accountability for it at all, right? What has not happened by the DOT, what has not happened by Governor McKee was, here's how it went wrong, and here's how we're going to make sure we never do it again. You haven't heard anything about that. And to me, that's criminal, completely wrong. And it's no way to run a government. And I'm dedicated to fixing the broken DOT. And I think the only way to deal with it is to sweep out all the managers, bring in a new set of management, and set things up for a more transparent Department of Transportation, where the procurements are more even-handed. The big companies don't bid on our projects because they know they're not going to win because of the insider status of how many projects that we do and how they go. So for all those reasons, we had to do things really differently. And here's the crazy thing. And I've said this in previous interviews, but it really bears saying. Mm-hmm. Democrats, Republicans, insiders, they all know that what we're doing here isn't working. They all recognize it. They just do. And in this political moment, with me being the only person that's actually talking about how to fix it, and with my long track record of being engaged in issues that are important to Rhode Island and to me, my pet issues, people are beginning to abandon their party identities in this race. And I know that from some of the people who've already, lined up behind me and told me they're going to help. And that's perfect because this is my flavor of politics. I want to be in the political middle. I want to be the answer person. And I just want to do the job professionally, which is what the voters, when they cast their votes, they're casting a vote to hire the person they think that can make the biggest difference. And I think I'm that difference maker.
Yeah, there's a lot in there I want to get to, but I want to go back to the notion, and you invoked Bruce Sunderland, and I think there is an analogy there that is so important right now, which is...
So look, in my eyes, he is a giant, and I am not. So I don't compare myself to him.
Sure.
Not and accidentally or otherwise. I take care not to do that because I'm not.
Well, let's talk about Bruce Sunderland psychologically. And day one, closing the credit unions, and what that means, what that decision means, what that says about a guy who flew those bomber planes, who understands what a real-time decision means in real life and the ripple effect there, and what not making that decision means as well. How does that inform your day-to-day and political life, that mindset?
Yeah, so I live that mindset. I am in business acting as not only a trusted advisor, but I have consultants that I place into these businesses. And we are constantly faced with making high-level decisions, and they have to be made quickly because oftentimes these decisions relate to either how the business is running or not running well and changes we have to make, or they're in the process of bidding on a contract and there are deadlines and we have to reach answers quickly and accurately. So I'm quite used to it. I am, there's no easy way to say this. I'm a man of action. I have an ability to assess quickly, make a decision, and I'm able to live with those decisions, and I'm right way more than I'm wrong. And I'm also careful though. And, I have done really in-depth studies on governments and how things work and don't work. And I believe in fact-based decision-making. So, and again, I have that in my background. That's a key fiber of my being that I don't know that anybody else in this race has. And that's really what I think we need right now. The answers can only come from diving in, collating all the facts, going through it, telling everybody, here's the facts, here's what they mean, and here's what our answer is.
Are you ready to take the next step in your career? At URI Online, we offer business and leadership-focused programs designed to fit your life. Whether your goal is to advance your career in fields like public administration, supply chain management, or training and development, our online programs provide the flexibility you need with a high-quality education you deserve. Learn from experienced faculty and collaborate with a network of professionals, all from the comfort of your home or wherever life takes you. Visit uri.edu/online to explore programs and start building your future today. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us.
You and your employees work hard for your customers. At HealthSource RI for Employers, we work hard for all of you. We offer access to 18 quality health insurance plans plus dental, flexible costs to meet your budget and get your staff what they need, and customized local support to guide you through it all. More than 1,200 Rhode Island employers choose health insurance through us. HealthSource RI. We work for you. HealthSourceRI.com/employers.
Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by Newport Film, Visit newportfilm.com. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org. Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by Waterfire Providence. Visit waterfire.org. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communications, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com. Follow me on Instagram at Bill Bartholomew.
Yeah, decisiveness seems to have just disappeared when it comes to the Washington Bridge, at least from a public.
Courage has disappeared.
I would agree on a wide basis. Individual thinking, it's like this huge deal when you get a Tim Burchett or somebody like that defies party line on a national stage and even here locally. But that decisiveness is, I think, the thing that really resonated with Rhode Islanders, or the lack of decisiveness when it comes to the Washington Bridge. Not necessarily day one, hey, everything went perfectly in terms of our preparation for this media event and whatever. And that's not it. It's we're going to make a decision, and this decision, it might mess up your commute. It might reveal things about our system of power here in Rhode Island that not everybody knows, that not everybody is quote unquote supposed to know, but needs to know. That's political courage. And I'm not accusing the governor or anybody else of not having that in this particular instance on a blanket basis. But in terms of communicating with the state with what happened, it leaves a lot of questions where people start to use their own imagination, including there's a lot of corruption happening here.
Yeah. Well, I'll say it. The governor has exhibited no political courage when it has come to dealing with accountability, explaining to us how this could have possibly happened in the first place, and telling us how he's made sure it will never happen again. We've had nothing about that. And that shouldn't take political courage. That's him doing his job. And it hasn't gotten done. I'm sure there are political reasons why he hasn't done his job, but that's not the concern of Rhode Islanders. They want to know that any other $500 million asset that we have, whether it's a bridge or anything else, that it's being managed and maintained correctly, because that bridge certainly wasn't. And it's when I'm going to come back to this a bunch of times as we talk. We keep making the same mistake over and over again, and I am scared to death that there is another Washington Bridge just waiting out there for us because the DOT has ignored it and we're about to pay the price again.
Well, why wouldn't there be? I mean, this is a situation that since really the turn of the century, I remember going to a presentation when I was living in New York with some admiral, U.S. Coast Guard admiral, that gave a presentation at Cooper Union about how our infrastructure was going to be basically useless in 30 to 40 years if we don't make transformational change. So that concept, you can see it popping up all over the place around the country. But when you really zoom in on Rhode Island and you see the Washington Bridge, you can get have a talk radio segment where you've got a bureaucrat that comes on and says, well, we had this engineer check this and check that and everything's great. And, let's have a celebration of just how wonderful we are. You can have a bureaucrat come and say that. The fact of the matter is, why would the average person have faith in government right now in Rhode Island when it comes to maintaining infrastructure after the Washington Bridge? The answer is they ought not.
And they don't, right? And this is really what's breathing life into my candidacy here. Whether it is the payroll systems, whether it is the bridge, and there's a ton of other things. If you've ever had to work with DHS, which is Health and Human Services, for benefits and that sort of thing, there is horror show after horror show about how our government is misfiring. And there is no excuse for it, right? And there is a way to make it better. And it's really not at all on the state employees as much as it is on the management of it, from the department chairs right down to the mid-level managers. We're not managing to the task, and we're not constantly improving, which is really what organizations always have to do. If you're not constantly improving, you're stagnating, which is the worst possible place. And we're stagnating in an area of monumental dysfunction throughout the government, and people don't want it. It costs us dearly, right? When this $100 million software project goes sideways, we're paying millions of dollars on top of what we've already spent to fix it. And UHIP started as a $100 million project, and now it is, with no word of exaggeration, over $1 billion that's been sunk into it. We cannot continue to mismanage this sort of thing. It's killing us.
When people talk about state budgets this year, that last year, whatever it is, and the number comes out, and there's always, well, look at New Hampshire. Okay, well, they have counties. There's a million reasons why a Rhode Island budget is unique. Part of that's entitlement programs. Part of it is things that are just fixed into the Rhode Island psyche or the way we do. Some people hate it. Some people love it, whatever. That's just part of the deal. Where there is a lot, there are two areas where there are obvious cuts potential. I trip over that because it's not obvious, but potentially could be a space for cuts. And that is, of course, these ballooning projects that are usually of a digital nature, usually of an infrastructure nature, that at the end of the day are seemingly at least partially unreliable. And also now in an era where we're seeing unbelievable transformation in technology and what can be accomplished. I'm not suggesting we get OpenClaw and have, somebody on the governor's staff manage our government, but it's changing. It could be AI washing to say we need to shrink government and replace it with AI. At the same time, should government shrink? Should AI come in? Is that part of the problem here?
Well, if you're asking me what I think the root cause of most of our problems right now, I've already said it. It's management. Right? We are failing to manage these projects correctly. Is it possible and or even likely that we're missing some of the skill sets we need to protect the taxpayers' interest on these $100 million software and infrastructure projects? I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say, yeah, we probably don't have some of the people that we need because they're expensive to have them on staff. But when you have $1 billion wrapped up in a software package, how can you afford not to have that person on staff, right? So there's going to be, I have to be able to get in, have the assessment, figure it all out. And then if we do have needs for new skills, I have to go make the case to the General Assembly, which I will fully be prepared to do. And hopefully they will see how it's smart to spend this money, which relatively speaking isn't very much, to hire the right people to protect us on the other end from what could be a colossally big problem, right? Look, our current budget is $15 billion, which comes out to roughly $15,000 per man, woman, and child who's here. And when you stack that up against most other states, it's really high. And I think part of the problem is we're misspending a good sized chunk of that money. And some of that money is just being wasted on projects that go over, and because of our mistakes, we're paying more for them.
Yeah.
The Auditor General has told us in many cases where we are spending money that we're not supposed to be doing, right? And so we already have a roadmap of sorts for how to save some money because we're not within whatever the rules or regulations are on whatever program it is. And we need to deal with that because those same things come up year after year after year after year. And when I added them all up one year, it came out to well over $100 million, right? And I'm sure we can all think about ways we can spend $100 million, right? So,
right.
And I don't know what everybody's capabilities are inside of government right now. I can assure you that I've been speaking to many people in the last 2 weeks, and I'm talking to some incredibly smart people who work in state government. So it is not we have the raw materials to be way more successful than we are right now. It's the politicians who are screwing it up. If I'm just going to be honest about it, that's where the problems come from.
The reallocation piece is something that is so important. You mentioned that's where there's million places we could use $100 million. That's how fiscal, it's a dangerous term to be fiscally conservative. You all of a sudden get pegged as your antisocial programs. No. You're actually pro them. You want to fund them. We have RIPTA right now. And by the way, they're proposing the funding mechanic, which they made up the difference with the gas tax, that they fund this is the McKee budget. They're proposing to basically take away the funding mechanism for RIPTA. And we're talking about single digit millions of dollars. So when you think about reallocation, I think that is such an important element of this governor's race that very few people pay attention to. They say, well, there's a gap here, but where that money comes from is oftentimes the more difficult work to scrutinize. And you're saying that would be a big component of your work.
It absolutely has to be, because we can't keep growing our budget at the rate that it's growing, right? And I know we're going to talk about housing. I'm just going to jump right to so first of all, nobody across the country has figured it out, right? So that somebody in little Rhode Island is going to magically have the magic solution to a national problem that drives everybody crazy because there is no obvious answer. Here, I've heard candidates discuss we need 20,000 more housing units, we need 24,000 more housing units. At the very low end, it costs $200,000 to build them each. So you can do the math. 20,000 times 200,000 is roughly $4 billion. Where does that come from? And at the high end, at 20,000 units, at roughly $600,000 a unit, which is where a lot of the nonprofits are who build these neighborhoods of affordable units, that is close to $14 billion.
Right.
And so no millionaire's tax is going to cover that unless you confiscate every dime they have. And in Rhode Island, we still probably don't have that kind of
I don't think we have even anywhere near close to have an impact.
Anywhere near it. So it's going to come down to, it's pie in the sky to say that we're going to be able to produce this many units. The first thing we have to figure out is how do we get the most bang for the buck, right? And we're sinking a lot of money into the Superman building, and I haven't run the numbers fully, so I can't say this with any certainty, but I'm pretty sure as far as bang for the buck, those are going to be really expensive, affordable units, and we could probably build a hell of a lot more of them, putting that money somewhere else.
Yeah. And the constant there, they say, well, the cost to demolish the building is XYZ, and it's the historic component of it, whatever. That's one, but you're right. That's one example where you go, is that the best move forward? Is that the most contemporary, interesting new idea? Probably not. It's just an old building that is an office building filled with asbestos that they want to turn into.
And the problem is, it's an office building that no office wants to move into because it has to be really completely gutted and renovated to make it into a 21st century place, right?
Right.
And for housing, it's the same challenge, right? You really have to rip it apart and rebuild it in place, which makes it incredibly expensive. So I don't know what the answer is for the Superman building. It's privately owned, and I really would like to see the private ownership of that figure it out.
Absolutely.
And with a bit less of an ask of government for assistance, because the amount of money that they're asking government to put in should make us the majority owner of it.
Absolutely.
So, it's everybody wants to spend money. And we only have a limited amount of it. So we have to get smarter about how we spend it. And we're really, frankly, right now, pretty dumb about how we spend it.
Yeah. And there's so many impending crises. Private credit going belly up. Our pension system is heavily invested there. You talk about the Superman building. Okay, you move downtown to an old office building. You pay $2,400 a month to live in an apartment, tiny apartment. Now what? You can't even get a cup of coffee at 7 o'clock at night in downtown Providence. The place stinks right now. I live in Providence. I love Providence. I spend most nights in Providence. I go out every time it is not in any way, shape, or form a place where we should have luxury apartments downtown. Now you could say, well, that's the chicken and the egg equation, except for it's not. You're falsifying the value of that from a market standpoint or inflating it to just then say, hey, Brown University incoming grad student that lives in foreign country whose dad is paying the rent. How much is the rent of that place? It's close to campus. It's safe. Yeah, check. Thanks. You're building student housing. That's what, at the end of the day, in one way, shape, or form. So it doesn't even address the root cause. It's a narrow element of a macro issue though, that you raise for sure.
Yeah. when you're in Boston, there's such a different energy level than there is in Providence, right? And young people want that energy, right? And so when they're moving into an urban environment, they want to be energized by their environment. And, and Providence is wonderful in so many ways. Don't stand me, but it doesn't have the energy because we really don't have the jobs, right? And we're turning so much of that high value 195 land into housing that we're taking away our ability to build the structures necessary to really be attractive to some of these big businesses. But even if we did that, they still have a problem coming to Providence, which is about as far as from fiscal stability as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to expose their business to being used as an ATM, which is what would likely be the case right now, right? And a lot of the tax policy that's being proposed in the General Assembly right now is scaring the pants off of anybody who might have been considering bringing a substantial business here. It's a huge disincentive to come here with some of the tax policies.
So you would not be in favor of any sort of millionaire's tax or anything like that in terms of code?
We tax soda because we don't want people drinking sweet drinks.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get the same kind of result if you penalize millionaires. They're going to get less of them. And that is just rational economic behavior on there. But everyone who's taking economics 101 knows that if they could do the same thing somewhere else and it will cost less, they're going to do it. That's why so many jobs have left here over the years, right? Manufacturing jobs can be done much more cheaply somewhere else at this point, within the country and outside the country. And anybody who just doesn't appreciate that is just disconnected what the hard realities are. In mass, $4 billion in adjusted gross income a year has left Massachusetts since they implemented their millionaire's tax. $4 billion in adjusted gross income. That is a huge hit. Mm-hmm. And when you lose the really wealthy, you lose their philanthropy, their civic engagement, right? And we are really much poorer for it when this happens. So, look, if I felt that we really needed revenue, it would be a hard conversation to discuss. But in this circumstance where we have so much revenue, a huge budget, the fact that there are people who believe we need even more are not looking in the right place. So let's ask if we're spending all of that money in the way that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the answer is definitely.
Really interesting. To get elected and once you are elected, there's a journey that maybe you're on it now, but you would have to be on it, which is something that is seemingly absent from American politics right now. Coalition building. Yep. There's no way you can't get elected. I guess if every independent voter in the state voted for you, yes, that would be but if you're going to make any maneuvers in policy wise, you're going to need a certainly presence within the Democrat Party and beyond.
I have Democrats who are recognizable names who have assured me that they're behind me. I have Republicans who also have recognizable names who have pledged their support to me. And in both cases, the reason for it was because they didn't see any other option, right? So in this moment in time here in Rhode Island, it's the perfect time for the kind of politics that I practice, right? I'm sitting in the political middle. I'm focused in on the crisis issues that are so big they can consume an entire 4-year term. And people want them fixed. So it's this moment right now that my form of politics was really built for, designed for. And I don't have to, I'm not working hard to build that coalition. That coalition is kind of coming to me. And it's been really exciting so far. I've raised way more money than in a week than I had raised in a whole lot more time in my previous candidacies. The support is out there. More often than not, the first thing someone says to me, whether I call them out of the blue or they are contacting me as well, one of the first things I hear is some form of thank goodness. Because they just didn't know, they didn't see anybody that they wanted to vote for, right? And it's kind of an indictment of our politics that 5 years of running against each other, neither Folks nor McKee has figured out how to appeal to their own voters, right? Inside the Democratic Party, they're under 25% support. Yeah, the voters want something different. And I'm happy to live in that space to do it. That's been my gut all the way along here. I believe that's my path. Hopefully the poll shows that path not only is a possibility, but I'm already well down the trail on it. And I think I might be. I can't venture any numerical guesses because it could be anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. But the voters here are really not happy. They're not even close to happy. And they want answers. They want it fixed. And I've used this in the past and it's still true now. They want the government to effectively make the trains run on time. Yeah. Right. It's a quality of life thing. And holy moly, are we not getting it?
Well, it's so interesting that as we see all of these major shifts around the world, all the horror around the world that's happening and even in our own country and complete chaos on the national stage. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's totally insane on a seemingly daily basis, if not hourly basis. But here in Rhode Island, some of the biggest political stories of the last couple of years have been a bridge that broke, snow plows that are streets that didn't get plowed to satisfaction or to standards during major snowstorms, issues with the disbursement and the distribution of compliance materials for state employees, things like this, a data breach that impacted most Rhode Islanders that using the health source breach, the Deloitte breach. These are not issues of, that you really have to get up on the top of, Yagu Valley at night and stare into the ether to think about. This is just, hey, what are we doing? What in God's name are we doing here? Why are we, this is not a cheap place to live. And it is not in any way, shape or form, a scenario right now where the average everyday Rhode Islander, whether they know who the governor is, whether they know who the speaker of the house is, you, me, whatever, it doesn't matter, anybody. They could just be a regular person that doesn't even know that there is a governor. They would be able to tell you, yeah, I don't think it's working right.
It is most definitely not working right. And, the piece of the bridge that, look, it would be one thing if our bridge was knocked down by a boat, like what happened in Baltimore.
Sure.
Right. That's not why our bridge fell down, right? Our bridge was neglected to death. And the DOT did not know that this bridge was on the cusp of failure until they had to shut it down under an emergency scenario because somebody who was not an employee of the DOT noticed that the damn thing was bouncing up and down by several feet. Yeah. Right? That is a failure of government. It is a break with the voters to do the things that you're supposed to do as elected and appointed officials. There's no excuse for it. It's absolutely hideously wrong. And on the East Bay in particular, right, this has a big impact here. If you either work in the East Bay and live on the other side of the bridge, or you live in the East Bay and you have to go across the bridge daily to go to work or whatever, those people are paying an awful price for the incompetency that appears to be throughout the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. It's a failure of government, and Governor McKee's failure was to not engage and clean it up, determine how it happened, and make sure it didn't happen again. He has been missing in action. We have a lot of candidates who either have no idea about what it is they can actually do as governor, let alone, what they might do. They don't even know what the powers of the governor's office. And then we have candidates who are so lacking in political courage that they're just trying to survive their primaries, telling people whatever it is that those people need to hear. And I'm telling you not what anybody needs to hear. I'm telling people what we need to do to fix this. And there's a big, big difference between whispering a sweet nothing that makes you feel better about things versus committing to fixing the core of the problems that we're suffering from right now. That's what differentiates me from everybody else in this race. And that is a resonant message. People are really getting it. They're appreciating it. And political parties aren't going to be as big a factor in this race as they have been in the past because the parties definitely haven't produced the answers.
And they have their own thing going on in the Democrat Party right now. The idea that, will the party endorse Dan McKee or not? Is there something happening behind the scenes that Joe Shekarchi dropped out of the race so that now he can become a Supreme Court justice? What role does Helena Foulkes have with Shekarchi? All this stuff is kind of on the inside. And the average everyday person, they couldn't care less whether or not Helena Foulkes or Dan McKee gets the North Kingstown town endorsement. I mean, okay. But at the end of the day, it does show right now, even within the party here, there's a fracturing of alliances, and there's no doubt an uncertainty as to which direction the Democrat Party should go. And maybe I say that and somebody hears this and says, what are you, crazy? It's got to go the Foulkes way. What are you, nuts? Or someone else says, no, it's got to be continuity. It's got to be McKee. What's clear is that, one, they don't have a leftist candidate period, but no one has emerged. The proverbial Aaron Regenberg hasn't entered into the equation in this race, or the Matt Brown, or anybody like that. So that's not available to them. And so the voter looks to kind of two centrist people that the party is simply not signaling to the voter, here's the direction we want to go. The voter is just left to say, here's two people that seem like they don't like each other, and I've got to pick the kids up from school. And by the way, I'm behind on rent, even though I'm working full time. That's what people are thinking. And that does create a natural space for independent candidates.
Yeah, the vacuum is there. That's, I'd like to say we are in a political vacuum. It is devoid of answers, which is really just what people want, right? Yep. They want to know that we're not going to screw it up again. Okay. You can forgive a mistake, even $1 billion mistake you can forgive, I suppose, but you shouldn't have gotten there in the first place. But you better make darn sure that you don't make it again. And that hasn't happened, right? That hasn't happened in McKee. It hasn't happened under Raimondo. It hasn't happened under Chafee. We've gone a long time without addressing the dysfunction in our government. And I am hell-bent to fix all of this and set us up so that we don't make these mistakes.
Ken Block, running for governor of Rhode Island.
Follow me on Instagram @BillBartholomew.